everyone, and welcome once again to the AFA podcast, the official podcast for animationforadults.com. My name is Rachael, and joining me today is the lovely Nina.
Hey!
Hey! Just the two of us today, but we're really excited to talk about today's topic, which is that we're going to have just be a relatively singular topic. We'll see how much there's a lot to dissect with this one, but we're really excited. It is Modest Heroes, the short film anthology that was released in theaters via GKIDS from Studio Ponoc. This was their follow-up to Mary and the Witch's Flower, which came out last year. And it was dubbed over, and it had a little short run in theaters here in the U.S., and GKIDS was the folks at GKIDS were kind enough to give us the screening of this short film anthology, and now we're going to talk about it. So this includes, I'm going to turn really short, but just throw up a spoiler warning because these are short films, but yeah, so just in case you haven't seen them and you do really want to see them blind, do not listen to this episode and maybe come back after you have watched the film, whether or not if you had a chance to see it, still have a chance to see it in theaters, or if you'll have to wait for it coming out on DVD, because I would like to assume that we're going to get this on DVD if it was able to get to theaters. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. GKIDS has really been amazing with this distribution, both on theaters and in home video. So I honestly can't imagine it's not going to come out on home video.
Yeah, I'm so excited because it's hard to really for me to separate these three because they're all very distinct shorts.
Very much so.
At the same time, I can't imagine it's really hard for me to pick which one I prefer. Because normally when there's a style you like better or the story appeals to you more, but in all honesty, I have really a hard time discerning these three shorts in terms of which one appealed to me the most.
I definitely have a favorite and I have a least favorite.
Okay.
For sure. And what was really valuable to me about this format of three different shorts by three different directors is that, Studio Ponoc is a brand new studio. They're still trying to get their identity and get their footing and define themselves. And I thought it was a really useful way to kind of single out which directors are kind of doing what and which names are responsible for what aspects of the studio and kind of being able to separate that. And because when you watch a feature-length film, the whole team is contributing. And so sometimes it's hard to tell who's responsible for what parts. But this was really helpful for me to kind of gauge where is the studio going? How are they going to define themselves? How are they going to, pave a new way for child-friendly Japanese animation now that Studio Ghibli is, well, they're actually not defunct anymore. Miyazaki is back working on a new film.
Yeah, because he just can't stop.
No, he can't. I saw A Never-Ending Man, and it is that. He can't stop. He just needs to stop announcing it. Even Takahata said that during his last announcement. He was like, why does he have to just share it with people? Why doesn't he just do whatever makes sense for him? Why? But yeah, so I felt like this was a very useful way to kind of showcase the studio as its own unique entity more so than I felt Mary and the Witch's Flower, because Mary and the Witch's Flower was a very enjoyable film, but it was definitely a very safe film, which makes sense considering they are a brand new studio. They need to make sure that they're going to make their returns and impress people. But this one was fun because it was more experimental across the board.
Totally, yeah. And that's considering how young this studio is, they're making a lot of really smart decisions. Like you said, playing it safe for their first film, saying, we're a lot of, most people know us from the work that we've done with Studio Ghibli, so here's a film that we've done on our own without Miyazaki over our shoulders. So you can tell we are capable of doing a film similar to his on our own. But now this is more of, again, stepping in their own direction and saying, okay, we can do stuff that's just that this is us. This is who we are. This is who we're trying to figure out who we are.
And really creating a unique voice by doing shorts. That's not really a thing that you see even in Japanese film releases, is a short film collection released to theaters. That's very unconventional. And the fact that they're making these shorts more accessible, because Studio Ghibli is pretty infamous for having their shorts being kind of impossible for the average person to watch, because even if you live in Japan, you have to make an appointment months in advance to go to the Ghibli Museum. And even if you go to the Ghibli Museum, you don't know which shorts you're going to end up being able to see. You know, it's chosen for you, and who knows how many times you're going to be able to go and see everything. And, you know, Ghibli, I can't imagine them ever releasing these shorts outside of the museum. And, you know, I feel like, you know, they'd all have to pass away before any of that would even happen. But even then, like, that's kind of like their main draw right now is the museum. So the idea that Ponoc is immediately being like, no, let's share our shorts, like, let's make these accessible for everybody, is really, really exciting, because anime short films is where a lot of what, like with Ghibli, a lot of those short films is what gave birth to these features. And it's kind of like a missing piece of the puzzle that most people aren't privy to. And I really like that we're able to see this with Ponoc. Yeah,
being a lot more open with their experimentation in regards to figuring out where they want to go next. So that way they can, you know, people will have an idea of what to expect from them, which is good. I mean, again, and to have opportunity to see these directors and animators be a bit more playful in terms of what kind of stories they can create and how they bring them to life is really, really good. It's like you said, shorts in general are a very underappreciated lot of filmmaking, which I'm sure you're aware with the wonderful stuff that you guys get to see at Annie. But again, the fact that this is being released in theaters for, you know, in the West for people to enjoy is phenomenal. And I know I've said this many times, especially in the last year, because these releases have just been coming like almost nonstop from Japan. I feel like I'm living in a very privileged time to be an animation fan, when stuff like this, which I would normally never, you know, even dream of seeing because it wasn't be available to me, is now coming right to our doorstep. It's just like, oh my God.
I know, it's phenomenal. Like, I feel so blessed. Like, it's amazing. GKIDS, they're like, the work they're doing it cannot be overstated. Like, even though they're limited releases, it's still so unprecedented, all of these releases that they're putting out. And, you know, I'm just so grateful. And the cool thing about this is that the producer, Yoshiaki Nishimura, has said that they want to continue the short series. Like, this is not a one-off thing for them. Like, they really like working with shorts, and they kind of want to make this a consistent thing. Like, even though it's really hard, they're thinking like, this is only volume 1, so they want to keep making more volumes as the years go on. So it does make me wonder if they want to focus on shorts more so over features, because that's almost seems like what he implied during this interview that GKIDS attached to the theatrical release. After the end of the film, it almost seemed like that they were more interested in working on shorts than they were on full features, especially because the producer, he was even saying that, like, you know, we're kind of not really interested in making money. Like, we know we're not really making a lot of money, and that's okay with us. We kind of just want to make what we want to make, which is
all right.
A crazy thing for a producer to say.
Yes.
Like, I was like kind of flabbergasted. I was like, what? Like, he's like, you know, until
what did you just say?
I know. He's like, you know, we're not really making a lot of money, and that's okay. So until we get to that point, I feel like we're better off just kind of doing what we want to do. And I'm like, okay. I mean, I guess you have investors or something who are invested in this, because I don't know how you're managing to make that work, because they were fully not anticipating this to make a lot of money, which is nuts, because, you know, he was saying that making shorts is really hard because they made all 3 of these shorts simultaneously, which is very...
They did. I think I'm hearing about that.
Yeah, which is, of course, a very stressful experience. And he was saying it was even harder than doing features. Like, there's...
Which is funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's funny because I think I recall hearing somewhere, it might have been one of those interviews, that they were making these shorts in the first place as a way to take a break from having to produce a feature film, which was, you know, Mary and the Witch's Flower. So they basically spent all that time and effort making Mary, and they're just like, we're kind of tired. Let's just make some shorts.
Yeah, and then it turned out to be way more work because you had to have the staff separated into 3 different groups, making 3 incredibly different films that require different things. You know, they both had the technology involved in each film was very different. The art style was very different. And you had, you know, the one producer producing all 3 films at the same time. You had these 3 different directors who were like, you know, all working at once and competing with each other, which you know, helped elevate these films to being what they are. But the producer, Nishimura, was like, yeah, this was really, really hard. But, you know, he was like, it was harder than Mary. It was way harder than making Mary. Because even though these films are only 15 minutes long, they are so involved. Each film has so much depth to it. You know, it's like the process of just figuring out what these films were going to be was very extensive. So yeah, he was saying like, I am exhausted, but I don't want to stop doing this. Like I want to, he was saying like, let's try to get to 10, you know, before I die. Right. I want to try to get to 10 volumes. And I was like, awesome, let's do it.
Life goals, go for it, man. I will try to be there to watch all 10 volumes because I really enjoyed these shorts. It was because I mentioned last week I was going back to the theaters to see Spider-Verse, but not like only like literally the next day to write the review for this anthology, which you can find on the website. I basically watched this the very next day, and I'm just getting all the good animation this week.
Yeah, and it's just, you know, because of my work with animation nights, short films, especially animated short films, they traditionally are stuck in like festival circuits. You know, the average person doesn't really get to see a lot of these films. I mean, that's why Annie does what we do, and that's why we do it for free, because short films are an art form in into themselves. And that's what Nishimura said. He was saying, when we're making short films, we're not doing it because we think they're like practice or they're less than a feature. A short film itself is its own kind of expression, and it deserves to be recognized as such. And that's just so exciting. I mean, I still can't believe that I got to see a foreign animated short film anthology in an American movie theater, like at the AMC. Like it wasn't even like a fancy theater.
Wow.
Anyway.
So that's all really great. And I mean, we'll go right into the first of the shorts. The one that of the 3 seems to be have the most like Ghibli look. That's partially due to the fact that I think of the director of the Hiromasa Yonebayashi, who, if you recall, directed make sure I got the right name, because it's all of a sudden it just went out of my head. It was Secret Life of Ariadne.
Yeah, he directed Secret Life of Ariadne. He directed When Marnie Was There, and he also directed Mary and the Witch's Flower.
Yeah. Okay. So this is so far the first director of Studio Ponoc stepping in with the very first short, and that was the one that was of the 3, I think was the one promoted the most. And it's, you know, when you look at the film poster, theatrical poster for the film, you see the 2 characters, Kanini and Kanino, which is the name of the first short that he directed. And it's very interesting because I will admit the visuals of that one, at least the concept of it, really kind of drew me in, but I wasn't sure exactly in terms of what scale we were dealing with. I mean, I remember seeing the clip of the giant fish, but I wasn't sure exactly if it was like these were regular sized people and that's just a giant fish, or vice versa. So, but it turned out to be vice versa. And I'm like, okay, considering what I know of Ariadne, that kind of
he seems to like little people a lot. But yeah, it makes sense that this is the one that's sort of at the forefront because, you know, he's the most recognizable name at this point. He's directed 3 features. You know, his style is also the most like typical and the more comforting style because it is very Ghibli-esque. When I went to the theater, I was a little bit late, and so I missed the very beginning of this film. And I went to see this in Japanese with subtitles. And when I went in, a little bit late, I noticed there was no subtitles, and I was like, oh no, did they make a mistake? Did they forget to put the subtitle? Because you had mentioned that when you went to see Castle in the Sky, like that was an experience that you had.
And Ponyo, that happened twice.
Ugh. So I was like, oh no, it's like what happened to Rachel, but it's happening to me. And I kept waiting for them to say something other than their names to prove if it was broken or not. But then after a while, I realized, oh wait, no, this is their language. They only say their names to communicate.
They're like some kind of makeup language, I think.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally just saying Kanini and Kanino constantly. And then like, what was it, like Toto or something?
For father, yeah.
Yeah. So they're really only just saying like 3 words constantly, which is a creative idea. I do wish if they were going to have a unique language, it was a little bit more thought out, because there were certain scenes where it was kind of like, okay, it feels a little bit unnatural to just keep saying Kanini, Kanino. Like maybe they could have like come up with like a different phrase, even if we don't know exactly what it means. But I do appreciate the originality of that, of trying to make a full film where the characters, it's not a silent film, but they're not really speaking a language that we understand,
forcing us to really rely on the body language and the character expression in order to tell the story, which is what I liked about the film. And again, even though I was confused too when I was watching the screening that I got, was basically, again, you saw characters talking but no subtitles came up. I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Like, did something go wrong? Like, did I miss something? But no, that was intentional. But again, I really like how this guy really was able to capture this like minuscule world and make this, like, even like something as a fish in a river feel like a giant behemoth monster.
Yeah.
And it was so good. Like, I'm trying to like think of like different scenes in terms of like really just kind of like made you think, especially when you're seeing characters go up and out of the water or trying to move through the stream, because these are just characters are just living in this tiny stream somewhere with all these fish, and
they can like breathe underwater, but they can also breathe air. They're kind of like their own sort of strange organism.
They're like crab fairies.
Yeah,
because I mean they look like they've got the red cloaks they wear are similar to the red color that you see on the crabs that are in the film, and they have little crab claw spears.
Right.
And from when the film opens, you see like these dragonfly looking fairies like flying through the air before you kind of zoom in on the stream. So that's when I was like, oh, that's what we're dealing with. They're basically a type of like water spirit or sprite or something. At least that's what it seemed to me.
Yeah, they're definitely like almost like a bottom feeder kind of species, but they're humanoid. And fish-like because they have a lot of babies at once.
Yes.
But yeah, the plot is pretty simple. You know, these little tiny people live in a stream, and their mom is going to go give birth, and so the dad kind of takes care of them, and then the dad gets carried off by a current, and then they have to go find him, and they have like a dangerous journey with like a fish, but it all works out in the end. I mean, I think the most interesting part of this film to me was definitely the setting.
Sure.
Or so, like the characters were a little empty to me. Like they were fine, but to me, it was the creativity of the setting that I enjoyed the most.
Same, yeah. I less into the characters and more into the environment that we found ourselves in this film was definitely was the bigger draw. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I mean, and for that reason, it is my least favorite of the 3. I have this thing about Yonebayashi for me is I try really hard to like his movies, but I haven't managed to really like any of them. I've seen all of his films at this point, and I don't dislike them. I just find them very, I don't know, they don't like really get me, you know, they don't like grab me and make me really be like, oh wow, this is amazing. They just feel very safe, I guess. And like
interesting,
I don't know, and it's like it seems cruel because the polish of his films are fantastic. Like they look great, the quality is wonderful, the animation is great, but I just kind of feel empty when I see them. I always keep hoping for something to kind of really grab me or surprise me, you know, a moment in the film that makes me go like, wow, or even just makes me break out in a smile, but I just kind of never feel that. Like his character.
Yeah, emotionally gripping, emotionally grabbing you and pulling you into the film as opposed to just like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah, like I feel like his characterization just doesn't do anything for me. Like I've you know, Arrietty was cute, but I feel like not much really happened.
Because it really didn't.
Yeah, nothing really happened, which is fine if there was like, I don't know, more of like an internal character growth, but it seemed very simple. Mary and the Witch's Flower had a lot of really beautiful and creative visuals that were very fun. And I feel like Mary as a character was a pretty good character because she had she felt more like a real person.
Yeah, she has a mini arc that we could get into.
Right. But then like when Marnie was there, like I don't know. I always feel like his films have a lot of potential and he has good ideas, but I feel like his execution doesn't really go for the gold, if you know what I mean. Like I feel like
I kind of get it, yeah.
Like I feel like he can really push these even more to being something absolutely spectacular when he really just kind of lets it be something more comfortable, something more reliably successful. So, this film was good. There's, nothing wrong with it. The 3D integration was very fun. Again, the environment was really wonderful. Watching them like move underwater was really cool. My favorite part is probably the part where after the mom comes back with the baby starts swimming upwards. Like, that was really cool to me because I've never seen a baby swim before in animation. So I really like that.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, but overall, like I respect Yonebayashi's consistency. But I am more excited about what other directors in this studio could potentially do. Because I feel like he's had a chance to make a lot of stuff, and I'd like to hear some other voices more, especially now that we had a chance to see some of the other directors.
Yeah, I will say the one that we'll talk about next is the very next one, the anthology. My personal favorite of the three. I think if you had to twist my arm, I think this is the one, like when you're talking about getting emotionally gripped, I was definitely emotionally gripped by this next one.
I 100% agree. It is my favorite, absolute favorite of the three.
Yeah. By Yoshiaki Momose, if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes.
That was his film. And this was when you could tell, like, from Yonebayashi's look, which was, again, more of the Ghibli look, this is definitely, in terms of the two different styles, this definitely has its own unique identity in terms of its style. Like, you can still see, like, a bit of that Ghibli pedigree in it, but less so than in the previous one. And I kind of loved like almost the I want to say pastel because it's almost like a pastel storybook quality to its color palette.
For sure, it's very light. The lines are very light. The colors aren't very harsh. It's a bit similar to some of Takahata's later work, and where it looks a little
okay.
But I agree. I think this film strikes a really perfect balance between being approachable for general audiences and being something that general audiences won't feel like intimidated by, but then also having these wonderful moments where it does experiment with the animation and kind of breaks away from what you would typically expect for things to look like. Like there are some very ambitious sequences that are very creative and very jaw-dropping, but then the story is also just so excellently paced. And it's such a unique story that we really haven't seen before. And I feel like it does strike this perfect balance of being like commercially viable because it's not too out there, but then also experimental enough where it shows you something you've never seen before.
Yeah, at least not a story or topic that's really approached in films or filmmaking in general, which would be the fact that, what happens if you have a really severe food allergy and what to something that's common in, everyday food, and you have to avoid, otherwise you're going to have potentially your life will be threatened, and how you have to live and cope with that. Because I will tell you from my personal experience, I have a good friend who has a similar experience. She's allergic to a lot of different types of foods, to the point where if she accidentally ate something or was even nearby it, she would have to get an EpiPen and have to go to the hospital. I personally have not ever had to be present when she's had those instances, but I know another good friend of mine who I've known since middle school who has had that experience. Like, she was her roommate and basically had, I would follow up with them. It's like, oh yeah, Carrie had it, or my good friend would have to take her to the hospital and say, oh yeah, we're here, everything's good, everything's fine. And I'm like, oh crap, what did I miss?
Yeah.
But
and
when I was the entire time I was watching this short film, I immediately had my heart pulled, because I'm like, oh, I know someone who has had to live like this, unfortunately, and it's hard. It's very hard.
it is, and it captures it in such a realistic way. Like, I don't know anybody who has deathly food allergies, but my dad has celiac disease. So I'm very familiar with how hard it can be to eat food, because there's just so much stuff out there that you can't eat. And there's a lot of little details that get things so right, like the ice cream and how you have to wait for it to soften before you can eat it, because that's kind of like organic ice cream, and
yes,
it's not creamy.
Nope.
And according to Nishimura, this is actually based off of true story of a real little boy. Yeah, of a real little boy and his mom that he knows, who does have this egg allergy, and most of the story is directly pulled from both of their experiences. And it's just a really stunning piece. Immediately, you're almost a little bit confused, because it starts off in this hospital where they're trying to train the kids to build up a tolerance. And I'm always kind of why? What is happening? Why are they feeding these kids food that makes them sick? I almost wasn't sure if it was a sci-fi story or something about some kind of future world where kids can't eat food. But then it kind of slowly sort of gives you the status quo of the experience of this kid's life. And it really does build up the pacing where you learn so much about what it's like to have a lethal allergy in really subtle ways, and how it affects even the smallest things in life, how he can't eat lunch with his classmates, or he can't go to the field trip, or he gets caught in the rain with his mom, and they go to a restaurant and they can't eat anything at the restaurant.
Exactly, because everything has some form of egg, and basically she doesn't want to, obviously you can't eat if he can't eat, so it's well, we'll just get something to drink then. It's you go to a restaurant and you can't, that was another thing that just hit me, oh wow.
Yeah, it affects every single aspect of his life. Those moments, there's this montage towards the beginning of the film of every moment he's had to go to the hospital and almost died. And just these very simple little things. He had a birthday cake in his school and he had to go to the hospital. He got separated from his parents momentarily during Oban festival. When you're with your parents in a crowded place, and somebody kind of weasels in between you, and you're a couple people ahead or behind, and it's scary, but the fear is even more intense, because anything could set him off. And just the brushing of the takoyaki to his mouth with the mayonnaise made him have to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
Part of why he can't eat in the classroom is because even the saliva of people who just ate the eggs could make him sick. That's why the little kids are covering their mouth, and they're trying to be understanding, but they're little kids, so they're kind of And I love how it portrayed him as, there's definitely a stigma when people have allergies like that oh, they're they're weak, and they're fragile, they have bad genes. But then you see that he's a very fit and healthy kid. He's really good at sports, he does really great in his fitness exam, he loves baseball. It's just he has this inexplicable thing that makes his life so difficult. And I love the little moments where the animation breaks out of its style and does something really fun. Like his mom is like a jazzercise instructor, and I love this.
So like or dancer, like professional dancer.
Yeah, and I love the scenes with her dancing where the art style changes and it's like very fluid and like very impressionistic and sketchy.
Yeah, very exaggerated. Like I could tell, so they were having a lot of fun with squash and stretch on that one.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just really creative and fun. And it did help add to the scene where like you see that the mom was like getting lost in dancing, and then he goes to bite a cookie and she immediately breaks out and the style goes back to normal when she goes to slap it out of his hand. It's very effective. And then of course the climax is so amazing.
Yeah. I think in terms of the way when you were just speaking of in terms of how the animation style changes, I think that was the one that had the most impact on me, because that kind of reminded me of may he rest in peace, Isao Takahata. The famous sequence in the tale of Princess Kaguya when she's so upset and she runs from the party, and the format changes that very sketchy style, because there is that kind of when he realized that the ice cream that he has, they've now put egg in that ice cream, and he knows immediately what's happening, and then he calls his mom in a panic, and as he's running down the steps to go to the woman, the store owner downstairs who's prepared to help him, like as he's literally fighting to get down to her, as he's having trouble breathing, and you see that he's having a bad reaction, like basically in conjunction with his fear that we know he's experiencing, the animation reflects that in terms of the setting. The setting distorts. He kind of distorts a little bit as you're starting to see the red welts start appearing on his skin, and it felt like a punch to the gut.
It did.
It really, truly did.
You can feel the struggle, because at that moment he's trying to prove to himself that he can do this, that he's not weak, that he won't be defeated. Like, because his mom tells him, stick yourself with the pen and lay down. And he's like, no. He wants to prove that he's not going to die from eggs, like he's like, I don't want this to be, he saw that dead bird when he was coming home from school. And he's like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to let this defeat me. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this, even if it hurts. And he's a little kid. He's like 8 years old. And it's so powerful.
It's making me want to cry all over again just thinking about that. It is a powerful little short.
And even the tension building up to that was so masterfully done, because by that point in the film, even if you had no familiarity with lethal allergies, you really come to understand how dangerous it is. So you have this tension where you're like, oh man, when is he going to go to the hospital? When is something bad going to happen? And it's this very slow scene. He comes home from school, he gets a snack, he puts it on the table to defrost, and the camera just stays on the ice cream.
Yeah, it just sits in it, and it kind of goes from the right, like it slowly pans to the left as you're seeing like the ice cream slowly defrost, and which you can tell by the spoon kind of tilting to a side.
Yeah, and he goes to like
back into the room.
Baseball uniform, and the camera stays still, and you're just sitting there and you're like, oh my god, something horrible is going to happen. But you're just watching ice cream defrost. But the film has like prepared you to know that to make something as innocuous as ice cream feel like a threat,
Yes.
And it was so amazing. I was so impressed.
I really very much hope that we get to see more from this director in the future, because I am thoroughly, again, I'm equally impressed, and I really want to see more of what he can do. If he can do this incredible job with him and his team with just this one short, I would love to see him do a feature if that is something he wants to do. I
want to see that so bad. I wasn't ready for this film to be over. I wanted to stay there. Like I was like ready to just sit there for another hour and a half and keep watching this story, because it was so good. So well crafted, and I can't wait to see what this director can do in the future. It makes me so excited.
Yeah. It was weird coming off that one though, and I will say the ending, I really like the way that it ends, because he does succeed in getting downstairs, having his EpiPen put on, and he gets put into the ambulance. His mom comes and is there to escort him, and I think the last line is his mother, congratulating him on doing such a good job and being brave, and draws his attention to the fact that the tooth he lost earlier in the film is now having a new tooth come in, and she says, that's the tooth that's going to eat an egg. Yeah,
that's so cute.
It's like, that's a great line. That is, like, I love how that's the last line of the film, because it's like, it's, because it is possible. I think that's like why they introduced it with those kids trying to eat, stuff that they're not used to or that makes them sick. I think it's the general idea is that if you're more exposed to the item that makes you that you're allergic to, the less severe the allergy is going to become.
Yeah. So I don't know if he'll ever be like non-allergic, but just to get him to the point where he won't die within a matter of minutes is important.
Yes,
for sure. Because it'll just, because the mom character too is phenomenal, because she has to deal with this fear that like something as dumb as eggs could kill her son. Like, I love the scene when it happens the first time when he's a baby and she's like riding the bike with him, like just going full battle mom mode and being like, help my son.
Get him to the hospital, and then that's where they find out about the allergy. But even then, like, even smaller scenes when they're in that restaurant when they can't order anything, and she's basically drawing his attention to the fact that he didn't answer a question because it involved eggs.
Yeah.
Like, I know you can't eat eggs, but you know the answer to this question. And he's like, yeah, I know it, but I think it's stupid. Like, oh, you think it's stupid, so that means you don't have to answer it, huh? There's like a really good natural, like, organic mom-son dynamic relationship that those two have.
You can tell they really like each other. Like, she really admires the person that her son is and like genuinely enjoys being around this kid. And like, he's such a good kid. Like, it's just a lovely story and a lovely relationship.
And even with all the drama and everything, it does end on a really nice note in regards to the fact that, there is hope for the future. Even, like you said, even if he might not completely get over this allergy, at least, being exposed to eggs are not going to be life-threatening anymore. And that's what he seems to resolve himself to do. Is like, I'm stronger than this. I am better than this. I will get better.
Yeah. And I hope that the actual child the story is based on gets there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know this is actually based on an actual person. Like, yes, I really hope so.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. And I'm sure like all the people who have allergies like this can overcome and be strong and survive. And it's it's wonderful that a film like this can teach those of us who might not be exposed to this kind of stuff about what that's like, so we can know better.
That's the importance of film.
Yeah. So we can know better when we meet someone like this, and we can be more understanding and helpful.
Yeah, and I know one such person who I've known since high school who's had to struggle with that, and a great deal many other things, but that's been one of the primary things she's had to struggle with. And I was thinking about her the entire time I was watching that movie, so it really tugged on some serious heartstrings. But it made the film all more special.
You'll have to share it with her and see what she thinks.
I most certainly will. I'm not sure when I got a chance to see her next, but I'm going to reach out to her as soon as I can to see if we can share that with her. But the last film, which was, I would say, was a little bit of, I wouldn't say jarring for me, but I had a little trouble transitioning to this next one, though I did end up really enjoying it and the ideas it presented.
Yeah, it's definitely the dark horse of the three.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, that is Invisible by Akihiko Yamashita.
Who used to be the #1 character animator in Ghibli.
I can understand that from looking at this. Because there is, even though our main protagonist is indeed invisible, you can't really see him, or what he really looks like, is the idea that he's still there. And like, even when you have a scene of just him eating, I loved the animation of visually showing someone who you can't see eating like a physical sandwich or something like that, and still you can kind of get a better idea of like where the mouth is and everything, and it looks like a neck. You can still tell he's chewing and stuff like that. I was just like kind of drawn into that, like, wow, that looks really impressive.
It is. It's stunning. Like, this film is definitely an animator's film. Like, the whole premise, the whole reason the film exists is basically to push the animation and like what is possible. It's really funny because Nishimura, he admitted that it was almost kind of mean, where he was like, you know, he really wanted Yamashita to make a film because he's this fantastic animator, but he wanted to challenge him and be like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna like ask like one of the best character animators in Japan alive, and I'm going to ask him to make a film about a character who's invisible. Because
you literally can't see.
No, he's literally not physical. Like, and so it was like, okay, greatest Ghibli animator, here's a challenge: animate a person that doesn't have a body. And he did.
Make him wear clothes.
Yeah, but like even then they
drive a motorcycle.
They do really clever little things. Like, you know, obviously they give him glasses because you kind of need to know where his eyes would be to kind of relate to him.
Yes.
But even though like he wears gloves, but if you notice, there's a gap between his sleeve and his glove, so like his wrist is invisible. And that's kind of difficult to animate hand movements without the wrist to anchor it to the arm, you know? So even though you can see the hands, the whole momentum of how this character moves is insane to me, because he doesn't feel weightless, even though he technically is, which is the funny part. Like, I think we've seen, you know, like in movies with like invisible characters, like you were mentioning with this when he was eating the sandwich. We've seen like in movies where like, oh, you know, a character, he is invisible and you kind of see the sandwich floating and then you see like a bite taken out of it and then another bite taken out of it, and that's like eating the sandwich. But they go way beyond that. Like, but yeah, so like he gets like this sweet bread from the drugstore, and like when he's eating it, it's not just like, oh, you see bites being taken out of it, but like you see the way that like his hands would be manipulating, and the way that his mouth kind of presses into it and squishes it in. Like think about like the scene in Spirited Away where Chihiro eats the rice balls while crying, and like she kind of puts her whole face into it. Yeah, that's what this character is doing, but you can't see his face. And it's remarkable. And the whole time it's raining. So he has raindrops all over his face and head, including the back of his head, which you can see because he doesn't have a solid head. And all of these things are moving in conjunction, and it is mind-boggling. I don't know how they did this movie.
It was just like, I keep thinking back to that scene. It was just really like, I was trying to like look at you could tell the animation was there, but it's like, if I don't know, really, I can't even talk about it because it's like I'm trying to figure it out, but I don't have as much knowledge as I should in order to figure it out. But you can tell a lot of detail was taken, even when it comes to like, say, when the camera. I think I've noticed a lot more of the camera direction, like especially when he thinks he's like someone's finally seen him at the convenience store, and the camera slows down as she's running toward what he thinks is him, and then it just slows down as you think, like, you can almost picture in your own head, like, kind of like the maybe like stunned expression that's probably on his face, but then she just runs right by him and just like, oh
yeah, it's fantastic, because like what Yamashita was most known for was his expressions and the way he can create expressions and characters. And you can see this character's expressions, even though he doesn't have a face. Like in moments like that, you can tell what he looks like when he's feeling hopeful, or he's feeling sad or dejected or terrified when he's floating away, because like, not only is he invisible, but he doesn't have any weight to him. So like there's this really neat thing where he's carrying around this fire extinguisher, and the whole movie you're kind of like, what is this? But then when he gets mad after that woman doesn't see him and he throws in frustration, then he like starts floating up, and you have this amazing scene where he's like trying not to fall into the sky.
That I think was my favorite scene, other than the when that point where he was eating that food and I was trying to like look at like, how the heck is he eating that? But yeah, that whole sequence where he's literally trying to keep himself from floating into the sky and just grabbing at anything that he can physically hold on to try and grab and keep himself held to the ground.
Yeah, and like
really good.
And it's like, it's so strange because he's weightless, but he still has weight at the same time because he's literally weightless. Like, he floats away, but his animation, it's not like weightless, floaty animation. Like, he does feel grounded. Like, he does feel like a physical thing. Like, he's not intangible. Like, he takes up space even though you can't see him.
Yes.
And like the whole film is kind of like it's an allegory for how there's just certain people in our society who are rendered invisible, maybe not literally, but they're just not really seen as real people. That they're just kind of, they blend into the background and nobody really notices them. Mm-hmm. And like his whole journey is kind of being seen by someone.
Yeah.
Like the first person he's kind of seen by is a blind man.
Yes, indeed. And his dog.
And his dog, which interestingly enough, we never get to see the blind man. So you kind of almost, he's also invisible in his own way, similar to the main character. But then like the climax with the truck and the flying and the motorcycle and the baby.
Yeah, at first I wasn't sure what was wrong when he's looking out and then he starts moving. It's like, wait, what's happening? And then you see the baby carriage and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
I was like, what are we looking at? Because like the art direction in this film is very different from, especially like the previous one where the colors are very dark and muted and sad and rainy and gritty. Mm-hmm. And you just see something red in the distance, like the first brightly colored thing you see, and you're just kind of like, what are we looking at? Like, what's going on? And then the scene just starts, and you're like, okay, we're doing it. Where something's happening. And it's phenomenal. And then just like the scene with the baby is so sweet.
Yeah, I think that's at first, like most of the film makes you really sad, but then those last few scenes, and you're just like, you kind of get a big dopey grin on your own face, like much like that baby when the baby like sees him.
Yeah,
it's the thing that sees him, and it's just like, oh my god.
And then after the credits, like he's visible now because all he needed was for one person to see him, to be.
Yes,
and it's very sweet. And I also would love to see this director make a film because I feel like it would be something I've never seen before, frankly.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm a sucker for good character animation. So if we have someone whose bread and butter is good character animation, then I would say, yes, please make a movie. Yes, please.
Like, I definitely want to see these two directors make movies. I want to see what other, because they've never made films before. Neither of these men have directed. These are their directorial debuts. And look how amazing they were. So it makes me wonder, like, man, what other people are in Studio Ponoc who have just, only ever, like, helped Miyazaki make movies? And what could they do if they're given the chance? Like, what other amazing, films are just sitting there under the surface waiting to happen that we don't even know about? Like, it's so exciting.
Yeah, other features, other shorts. Like, obviously, then since they will be carrying on, and this could be a way for other members of the studio to basically be doing the jobs. Like, hey, you want to take a shot at directing a short? And it's like, okay, sure.
Yeah. This film originally was going to have 4 segments.
Yes.
The 4th was going to be directed by Takahata, who was quite supportive of Ponoc, especially because Nishimura was his producer. He's the man who produced The Tale of Princess Kaguya. I
think we spoke about him in the last episode. You were talking about Princess Kaguya since you watched it recently. You were talking about he's basically the reason why Takahata was able to get the film finished.
Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for Nishimura because he actually came up with the ideas for pretty much these films. Mm-hmm. For Life Ain't Gonna Lose, he was the one who's like, I want you to make a film about this little boy I know. For Invisible, he was like, I want you to make a movie about an invisible character. And for Kanino and Kanino, he was like, I want you to make a movie about family because because the director, Yonebayashi, he just had a child and his wife had to kind of go off, and he had to kind of take on the responsibility of father. And he's like, I want you to make a movie about that experience. So he was kind of the one who curated this whole thing before the films were even made.
Wow.
Which is really cool to me. Like, I feel like that's like my dream job. Like, you basically like, I have ideas for movies, and then I'm going to pick amazing directors, and then they're going to make it, and it's going to be great. So I'm very I feel like Ponoc is in good hands with Nishimura and with all of these wonderful directors and animators, and the way they're willing to push themselves. It just makes me so excited for what this studio is going to do.
I totally agree. I think definitely if this is for their very first step into doing short film anthologies after doing a feature film, and regardless of what direction they decide to go next, if it's going to be another set of shorts or another feature, I'm very, very excited about what could be ahead for Studio Ponoc, just based on these two experiences of seeing me and knowing that they, that yes, they are in good hands, but that they're even prepared to experiment with stuff that they've never done before, and something that will definitely give them a separate identity to Ghibli and Miyazaki, because I think the folks there deserve to be recognized for what they do and what they've learned.
Yeah, because, we obviously adore Miyazaki, but he has kind of overshadowed a lot of these creators for a while, and it is really wonderful to see who these people are and what they're capable of on their own without being just making Miyazaki films or Ghibli films.
Exactly.
And it's fantastic. And one thing that Nishimura said about like what his intention with Studio Ponoc is that he wants to make a studio that makes films predominantly for children, because he feels like in the current Japanese animation landscape, there's not a lot of stuff that's expressly made for kids, especially now that Ghibli is kind of in a weird place.
Yeah.
And his goal is to kind of capture that feeling that we had as children watching Ghibli for the first time, and wants to give that feeling of wonder to a new generation of kids. And I can really get behind that, because I know what it's like to watch a film, like a Ghibli film, at a really young age, and how it can kind of leave such an amazing impression. And looking at Modest Heroes and even Mary, I can totally see that being just an amazing source of wonder for a new generation of kids.
Mm-hmm. A gateway into understanding that there's more to animation than just Disney.
Yeah, or even just like Japanese children, because like, so much of anime is made for otaku and adults, and the few kids anime there are very commercial and very like toy oriented, like Precure and Pokemon and stuff, which I like both of those things, but it's different than watching a film like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice to have a film for kids, which isn't a buy our toys.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I guess that's mostly what I have to say. I had such a wonderful time, and I can't wait for more.
Same. And I do want to ask, if maybe give us an opportunity, because that was the big thing. But if we want to mention a couple things in the water cooler, because I think by the time this comes out, it may be a few days past a certain film screening date, because I'm not sure who might be listening to this who also might be Dragon Ball fans, but I do want to say I did get a chance to see the Dragon Ball Super film that just came out on the 16th of January. I got to see it opening day.
Nice.
With a full theater of Dragon Ball fans who were super friendly and super nice. We're all super excited for the film. There's the word I'm using quite a lot. Doing that intentionally. And I remember when the trailer first came out after the television show, the anime was kind of getting in its off season. With they were starting putting the new character design for Goku for this film that they had made especially for this film, as well as the teaser, which offered a new look at what the animation style was going to be like. And I'm going to say, regardless of story, I was personally impressed by the story, but your mileage may vary depending on how big you are into Dragon Ball in general.
Yeah.
But it does definitely feel like something Toriyama would make in terms of it having a good emphasis on humor, and of course, as what Dragon Ball is known for, big giant action sequences. In the case of this film, just one big giant action sequence because that's what everyone came for. Are
there goofy moments though? Because those are my favorite parts.
There are definitely some goofy moments, mostly with Goku, and believe it or not, Frieza gets some goofy moments. Like, oh my god, I think he got some of the best, like the funniest moments in the movie, and I'm just like, but still staying in character, which is very impressive.
Wow. Because my favorite part, because I got to see Battle of the Gods in theaters. Mm-hmm. And I loved how most of that movie was just domestic stupidity.
Yes.
Because that's my favorite part of Dragon Ball, because these characters are ridiculous and I love their relationships.
Mm-hmm. Piccolo is best dad, bar none.
Oh, yes, for sure.
And if you watch Super, like, basically most of what Super is, especially in the early portions, it's just a bunch of slice of life shenanigans with all these different like quirky characters and family units, and it's just absolutely precious and I love it. And there is some of that in this movie to a small degree, but obviously there is the big action sequence and the fact that we have to build up these characters too.
It's more action oriented.
Yes, but that doesn't mean it's devoid from good character moments. I think there was some, but they're just not around the characters we're used to. They're actually focusing on the characters that are introduced for this movie. So that's Broly, that's his father, and a couple of other characters who we get introduced to that are actually in Frieza's army. They're like one's a newer recruit, the other's been around with that crew for a long time. He's kind of like the old soldier type, and they're not really fighters. They're just kind of, because most of the strongest character, like people that Frieza had working for him, he basically killed to make a point. Because he does that.
Yeah, he does.
So they're basically just looking around for strong fighters to bring into Frieza's army, and that's when they come across Broly and his father. And there's just, even before they get to Earth and the whole big battle between Vegeta, Goku, and Broly goes down, there are some actually really nice character moments with these characters in this particular environment, and it was very refreshing. I'm like, I'm really super glad. I mean, not that I don't love Piccolo or Vegeta and his family, and Goku can be very funny when he's allowed to kind of just not having to basically just complain. He's like, I really want to fight something.
And when he gets to when he's not just there to save the day and he's just being a big old doof.
Yes, exactly.
Single-minded doof.
I mean, I wouldn't have him any other way, personally. But
I wish he was better dad.
I
recently saw this scene where he's going to go train with Whis, and he's like, come on, Vegeta, let's go. And Vegeta's like, my wife is pregnant. I can't go. And Goku's like, what does that have to do with you?
It's like, Goku, shame on you.
He was like, well, when Goten was born, I was dead.
Yeah, you don't say that like it's a good thing. If I may quote Vegeta in this movie, you dumbass.
And Vegeta's like, why am I even explaining this to you?
The person who was once a ruthless mercenary who killed people without a second thought have a better sense about this than you do. I have questions. But I mean, I really appreciate the fact that we were getting some character growth with characters who, I mean, we may have not really known a whole lot about before this film began, but kind of like with Beerus, we get to know a little bit more about them and their personalities and how they work off each other. And by the time that the fight happens, you're kind of torn between obviously you know Goku and Vegeta are going to pull through and they're going to win the fight, but you're also kind of scared that you don't want Broly to get spirit bombed and have nothing be left of him, because you're actually, because of all those character moments, you're kind of like, I don't want him to die.
Oh.
Which is really surprising, considering the fact that his original appearance in the previous Dragon Ball films, he could have not been like one of the most shallow, least interesting character in the entire film. Yes, strong, powerful, gave the characters a severe run for their money, but that wasn't what made that. people are really fond of this character because of the fact he's so strong. And I'm like, he's not really a character if that's all there is to him.
Exactly. It's just like, he's nothing. Like, so I'm glad you're saying that they did something with him, because he was so boring before.
They still obviously did take some inspiration of what he was before. Obviously, they didn't want to change too much to the point he wasn't recognizable. But
well, yeah, I mean, he still has to be a big buff guy and be very aggro.
Yes, very aggro. But the reason why they explain that is because he was exiled to this very barren planet that literally, and he and his father were living stranded down there for 41 years. So he's literally been like this guy who's been living almost like the Tarzan archetype, kind of been like isolated from basically everything else out there in the universe, save for the one influence that he's had on his life, and that's his dad, who is, honest to God, both trying to be supportive of his son, but is also very clearly terrified of him because he can't control him. All he has to do is look at a moon and turn into a big ape, or obviously, I mean, it's made very clear on that his powers fluctuate so much that he can't control it, to the point that he can go out of control. And his father had to deal with that on top of all the dangers this planet has for 41 years. And so he literally has like a taser shot collar on his son to try and rein him in. And they don't play around with that. They make sure they make it very plain that this is a uncomfortable, very, very troubling situation. And even the characters that were introduced to in the Frieza army, Chilai and Limo, are very disturbed by this. Like, you put a shock collar on your own flesh and blood.
Yeah.
There's seriously wrong with that.
For sure.
And it's like, oh my gosh, is this film actually doing this? This is the Dragon Ball film. Like, I mean, can't say I'm upset by what I'm seeing. I'm actually really getting into it. But, like, wow.
Oh, that sounds fun. Need to catch it then.
Yeah, I would say if you have an opportunity, I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be in theaters, but it has been doing gangbusters. And,
yeah, I don't doubt it.
And part of the reason is not just because of the fact that it's a good story for Dragon Ball, it also does not feel inconsequential. It looks like they might be using this as a springboard into whatever they do next.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they did with the previous two Super movies. Like, they were canon with the Super seasons, so.
Yep, but even better so, I've seen pretty much every Dragon Ball film. I'm a diehard fan. I've seen most of the other films. I think there's one or two that I may not have seen. I think Fusion Reborn is one that I haven't seen. I really like the animation of what I've seen for that one. But without seeing that film, this has got the greatest animation I have seen in Dragon Ball anything ever.
Oh, wow.
I would like to think that because it's been, I had a couple days to really sit on this film, that I'm still not like at that point where you've just seen it and I've been like, oh my God, like you're still got that film high and you're just going to be constantly like showering praise for the film no matter what. Even after sitting on this for a couple days and going back and like looking at some clips from the other films, to just because I wanted to see, like, is there any type of Dragon Ball film that really looks like this at this point? I'm like, even though like Battle of Gods and Resurrection F like had some nice animation to it, more so than Battle of Gods, I think had some nice like animation, the fight with between Goku and Beerus. But no, yeah, I think this movie has them all topped.
Oh wow, that's amazing, because those two films look incredible.
Yeah, I think there was the new approach, whatever new approach that they decided to take with this film in terms of going back to the softer designs that they had for the characters. And there was, like, we were talking about the importance of like fluidity and like fast animation, like when we're talking about the in Modest Heroes with the dancing.
Mm-hmm.
There's something quite similar to how the fight plays out in this movie, and it's like, I really hope that because this film is doing so well that we get more animation like this in not just another Dragon Ball film, but Dragon Ball anything after this, whether they do like an OVA, another show. Like, please give this franchise some room to breathe so it can look more like this, because if that's very much the case, then I know it's already a successful franchise, but it's probably going to be doing even better. Like it'll reach a lot more people, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wish the budget could stay consistent with the television show as it is for the films, but it's just like doing weekly anime, and considering the way the industry is at this moment, it's really hard for TV anime to look so consistently good these days, especially if you know it's already going to make a crap ton of money regardless of what it looks like.
Yeah, but I had to keep reminding myself that this was Toei Animation working on this film and not Madhouse.
Oh, wow. Or like Studio Bones or something.
It came very close. I would consider something animation that I saw on screen to be from those studios and not from Toei, because, I mean, Toei's done some great stuff in animation, for sure. It's just that nothing quite like this.
Wow. Okay, I have to see it now. For sure.
Look at the trailers, and like, if you see any of the trailers for like later on in the film, like maybe like the first dub trailer is mostly about the thing with Vegeta and Goku fighting Broly, and the second trailer is more about the first half leading up to it, which was a lot of kind of backstory into the Saiyans and how they first met Frieza, and basically how they became his like basically mercenaries for hire, and then the whole like, you know, him blowing up Planet Vegeta. They kind of change a lot in regards to what we probably already thought we knew, because Toriyama was basically saying, yeah, I didn't really focus on this before, so I'm going to change it. So you have to kind of give it some lenience in terms of having certain aspects of the story that we've had to this point not be 100% defined, but if you're willing to forgive it for that, it's great stuff.
All right, but
unless there's anything else you want to add to the water cooler, Nina, I think we might just be about to wrap it up there.
All right, yeah. The only really thing is still watching Mob Psycho. It's still fantastic. I cannot recommend it enough. I love Studio Bones. They can do no wrong in my eyes, and I love Mob. And Steven is going to have its season finale tomorrow, as of this time of the recording.
Yeah, we're recording this the day before.
And I am so pumped. It's been very good. I've actually been going back and listening to the Steven Universe official podcast, which is so insightful. And
I actually did not know that was a thing. I will need to follow that.
Yeah, let me give you the link in the chat. It is fantastic. It's so good. I also highly recommend it if you're a fan of the show and you'd like more context for certain things, because I feel like sometimes fans of the show could use more context when they make their critiques. Not to start some fights, but I don't know. I'm very pumped. And other than that, haven't been watching too much other animation.
That's cool. Some weeks you get a chance to sit down and watch some stuff. Others times not so much. I just consider myself fortunate that I had that. I had pre-ordered that ticket for Broly, because if I hadn't acted when I did, and I looked at that seat chart, like there was literally like one seat by itself in the one corner. I'm like,
oh wow.
I was lucky I didn't get stuck up in the front like I had with Spider-Verse, because I'm like, oh dear God, no, please, not again.
Yeah,
I was in prime viewing space in this one. I was really super happy that I lucked out on that. But yeah, well, thank you so much for being on today's episode, Nina, and thanks to everyone else for tuning in. This has been a fun episode. We look forward to having them coming back. I think hopefully we'll see what will be going on next week and who will be available, but we'll make sure to let you know via social media, which you can find us on Facebook, on Twitter at AFA blog, and we're also on Pinterest, Tumblr, and Instagram. Please let us know if you have any recommendations for any particular topics or subjects that you'd like us to cover on the podcast. We have an email at podcasts@animationforadults.com. Please just shoot us an email if you'd like to have us discuss any particular topic, like an aspect of animation, a film that's just come out, or a film that's been out for a long time. Or you can submit a similar request if you have a video game that you would like to have us talk about for the AFA Gaming Podcast, which I hope will come back sometime in the near future, but we need to decide what we're going to be discussing for that, and hopefully that will happen in the relative future. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah.
And if you want to support us, please go and check out our Patreon page. We'll leave the link down there. in the show notes, as well as our Ko-Fi link for our Ko-Fi account. Just please, whatever you can give, we would most appreciate in terms of helping the website develop and see what new stuff we can bring out to you guys and have you enjoy. And as for each of us, Nina, where can we find you?
You can find me at Nini and Ichi.
And you can also find me on Twitter at Fail2Ninja, and I will also make sure to send out a shout out to our wonderful friends at Animation Nights New York, of which Nina is a part of.
Yes, we just came back we had a hiatus in December for the holidays, and we just had our screening this past Tuesday, which was fantastic. We do it once a month on the third Tuesday of the month, every month in New York City.
All right, and so if you have an opportunity to be in the New York area around the time of their next screening, please attend. It's free. So you'll just go in and enjoy some nice, lovely popcorn and sit and watch some amazing shorts, because as we've been talking about, a lot of the short films, especially animated short films, are art form that doesn't get a lot of press, but it is still incredible what these artists and animators come up with. So please support them in their work.
Yeah, the independent animators from all around the world do amazing work, and you will see something there that you've never seen before.
All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you on the next episode of the AFA podcast. Take care.
Bye.